Good afternoon and welcome to the 330 Sports Show. My name is Justin Coffin, and we are recording here down at Youngstown Studios. Today is July 28th, 2022. Wanted to first let you know that this show is brought to you by Alexis Smith, DO. Thank you for being a supporter of Youngstown Studio and the 330 Sports Show. Here's what we're going to get into today. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a facility I checked out yesterday. Tell you about that in a little bit. We're also going to talk about plenty about the Ohio State Buckeyes, plenty about the Cleveland Browns, and we're going to get into a few things such as the Mega Millions jackpot, which is, I believe, over $1 billion, which is pretty crazy. And if we have time at the end, I'm going to just tease it. Hopefully we have time for it. We're going to do a little draft or a little bracket, actually, and it's going to be the best of Joes. So Joe Danier is one of, down here, runs the studio and will be kind of the co-pilot for this bracket. And again, if we have time for it today, if we don't, we will get to it next week. But I want to first start out by saying I was invited yesterday to check out the new Athletix facility. It is out in Columbiana. It is a 45,000 plus square foot facility on Route 7 by Firestone Farms. Just a beautiful, beautiful facility. They have partnered with Top Golf. They have indoor basketball courts, volleyball courts. They have, like Dr. Dish for shooting. They have indoor facilities for softball, soccer, lacrosse, you name it, they've got it. They have indoor batting cages. It's just a beautiful facility. They have free weights, and they're going to have some kind of like some cool waiting areas too for like parents and for maybe younger kids that might be checking it out as well. So highly recommend checking them out. Athletix, they did a wonderful job putting this together, and it's still not completely finished, but a beautiful facility that we sorely needed in the Youngstown area. So well done to them, and I look forward to checking that place out more in the future. Also want to give one more additional shout out to the Boardman 12U softball team. They are playing on ESPN Plus here in probably about a half hour, 45 minutes. So you can check that out on ESPN Plus. But these girls won the state title for 12 and under. They have won their first two games. I believe they played Kentucky, and then I think last night they played Illinois. Today they will play Missouri in the winners bracket. So good luck to those girls. And I have a few people I know that have kids on that team, so wish them all the best. Now, Joe, before we get into like some Ohio State and some Cleveland Browns stuff, I want to ask you a question that's kind of been going around social media because I think Ohio especially is having trouble filling officiating vacancies. So there's a lot of debate out there. Do officials make enough money? We all know officials, if they're doing their job right, you don't hear about them. And if they miss a call, which we all tend to make mistakes, you're going to hear about it and they're going to hear about it. So my question I'm going to pose to you and people out there, should high school referees, and we're just going to focus on high school, should high school referees, now that's all sports, volleyball, football, basketball, baseball, all that stuff, should they be paid more? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, being a referee, it's a tough, thankless job.
Mhm.
And I know parents have been just getting meaner and more uptight about the competitiveness of it. And so if I were doing it, I'd say zero money is not worth the trip here.
Right.
So if they have to bait more people into it, then they got to do what they got to do. But that just kind of opens up, like we were talking about, having officiating done with software or cameras or whatever, and it takes people out of the equation completely. So I think to save it and make it a human endeavor, then we need to pay him a little bit.
Yeah, and I think in this you always hear, like, in football especially, it's a game of inches. In football or fast moving sports like basketball, there's going to be some mistakes called, and in the higher levels, college and pros, they have the luxury of going to instant replay or reviewing or challenging a call. At the high school level, they don't necessarily have that, and some of the more passionate fans, because that's my kid out there.
Yes.
Those parents get on those referees, and I'm not umbrellaing all parents, but a lot of parents out there, we know, and for the good and some for the bad, are very passionate, and you want to protect your son, your daughter, whoever it might be that's out there, and these officials have really a thankless job. So, I'm just posing. I think number one, the respect level needs to come up, and then number two, I definitely think I don't know what they're compensated, but I feel like their pay should be competitive to whatever the
I
other
would bet
states.
it's like $30 a game that they
I bet it's a little bit more than that at higher levels.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm sure at, like, the little league level and
those might
middle
even
school.
be volunteers at
Yeah,
that
that's
level. They
true.
might be just someone who's on the practice field and says,
That's
"Hey,
true.
you get it this time."
hmm
Maybe in high school you get more of $100 a game type of
Yeah.
thing, but it's not gonna be a lot.
No, and you got to go through training. You have to be semi shape. You have to know the rules of the game, and you got to deal with a lot of crap too.
Lots of
And
crap.
and
Have you ever
go ahead.
done like those softball leagues just to
Oh
fun,
yeah,
whatever?
yeah.
And they have referees or umpires. They
Mhm.
take a lot of shit there too.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be for fun.
And a lot of times those guys, like you said, guys or girls, are volunteers.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like you're ragging on someone who's given up their own time to help you out during this game. So so I am posing the question to you guys out there. Should they be paid more?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I know, and it's just not just in Ohio, but nationally, there's a shortage of officials, and who blames them? Like, I wouldn't want to officiate. Like, I've been a coach for basketball. I've seen it on the sidelines in football. Those are probably two of the more contentious sports, unless you're maybe a home plate umpire too. That might be one of the other tougher positions. But yeah, that is a very, very difficult job. And, I don't know exactly what the compensation level is worth, but it probably should be higher with whatever they're getting. Sorry, I'm sitting on my wallet and my key ring went off. It's to help you locate your wallet if you found it.
So, by the way, that is a nice shirt that you have. And
thank you.
Of everybody I know, you have the most consecutive wearings of shirts that catch my attention because they're not normal. I've never seen that design or that shirt anywhere, and you come up with some cool ones.
Well, I obviously, Matt from Youngstown Clothing Company, we know him well. He's been a guest down here. I probably have like 20 Youngstown Clothing Company shirts. This is a GV artwork shirt, and hey, you guys want to be a sponsor? I believe one of the co-owners I know just got married, so congratulations to you. But GV artwork, they make great stuff too, and it's very unique, very obviously very Cleveland themed. So yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you on that. All right, let's switch to Ohio State football. Right now in Indianapolis, I believe. It used to be in Chicago, now it's in Indianapolis. But there is Big Ten Media Days, and Ohio State went yesterday and Michigan went the day before. They kind of split up the schedule, had 7 teams go one day, 7 teams go the other. They also had Kevin Warren there, who did not shut down, possibly adding more teams to the Big Ten. So we're now, currently we're sitting at 14. In 2024, we'll be up to 16 with USC and UCLA joining. Obviously, the big fish everyone wants is Notre Dame. The SEC is going to go after them. The Big 12 will go after them. Obviously, the Big 10 and the ACC want them. So Notre Dame is kind of the big prize that's still remaining out there. But with Notre Dame comes some caveats. They want to remain independent. They're going to want heavy lucrative TV money, but the Big Ten pays its members equally. So Rutgers or Illinois or Maryland is bringing in the same amount of revenue from the TV markets that Ohio State does. And
Is it equally divided?
it's equally divided.
Okay.
So the revenue share is all the same, and it's upwards of over 70 some $million per year per university.
Well, if they get to the Big 52, that might be like $10 for every school.
Right. Well, and that's what this commissioner said, Kevin Warren. He said, we want to add teams, but a couple reasons. One, it has to make sense for the Big Ten. So, they want to keep natural rivalries, but bringing in UCLA and USC, that at least maintains that rivalry. USC's biggest rival, you could argue, is Notre Dame. You could also bring in a school like Stanford, or possibly one of the Pacific Northwest teams in Oregon or a Washington.
So what happens to these the SECs when they lose a big market team to, the Big Ten? Like their stuff dries up a little bit.
Well, the SEC will not have a problem because they are right now the big dog, and the Big Ten is right below them. Or you could say the Big Ten is maybe as a conference above the SEC, but SEC has Alabama, they have A&M, they're bringing in the Texas and Oklahoma, so they kind of I hate to say they started this, but this is kind of the Big Ten's answer. Right. So the Big Ten, which used to be 10, then added Penn State in the early 90s, then added Nebraska, and then added Rutgers and Maryland, and now they were up to 14. Now you bring in USC and UCLA. So it's it's a lot. There's a lot of big markets, and we talked about that the other day. New York City, Chicago, LA, the Big Ten owns those big markets. The SEC, the one thing they don't have going for them, not a whole lot of big cities down south that those colleges are in. Now, you could say, Dallas and stuff, but those schools aren't located in that city. Whereas the Big Ten, Northwestern's in Chicago, Rutgers is right outside New York. You obviously have the 2 LA schools. Columbus is actually the 16th biggest city in the country, which is pretty crazy. So you have a lot of dollars and a lot of eyeballs on those TVs, and that's where all the revenue comes in.
Well, here's the only guarantee is that I will understand how seeding and tournament play works even less than I did before.
Yeah, well, no, I totally understand. And the frustrating thing for me is when you're in a conference, it's kind of cool to play those other teams in your conference, So, but when you have, let's just hypothetically say it stays at 16 in 2 years. So you're at 16 teams in the Big Ten, which they might want to rebrand that too, but 16 teams, you play 12 regular season games a year, 3 non-conference games a year. So you're only 9 conference games. So Ohio State will always play Michigan. They will probably always play Penn State, and they will probably always play, I don't know, Indiana or maybe Michigan State. I'm not sure what the other third rivalry will be. So you're going to play, those 3 teams. So really, that leaves only 6 teams out of the other, 15 Big Ten schools that you can play. So you're only going to be playing those teams once every 3-4 years. Right. And, so is that truly a conference? Yeah, you could match up with them in the, the title game, but I don't know. It's kind of taking some of the rivalry out of it. But in the long term, maybe you're playing more cross matchups with bigger teams. I don't really know.
Well, is it time to remove those smaller schools in the beginning of the season and put more of your conference games in the schedule?
Well, they used to only be 8 conference games. Now there's 9. So I think the Big Ten wants to keep it at 9, and I think a lot of conferences do. But yeah, when you go, I don't really know what the answer is. Hopefully some of these commissioners and athletic directors can figure this out, because, like right now I'm looking at Ohio State's schedule that you're playing 9 games. You're playing 3 crossover games. So 3 teams from the West, and you're playing, the 6 teams from the East. So I don't know what the answer is.
They're gonna jack it up so it's even more ridiculous.
Exactly. So let's go back real quick to that schedule. Obviously, the Buckeyes open up with Notre Dame, which is the marquee game on the slate, and you end. So your book ended there. You got Notre Dame to start. You got Michigan at the end. You do have some other big games in there. You got Wisconsin. You got Michigan State. You got Iowa. You got Penn State. So there's some decent. That's a pretty difficult schedule, but if you look at it, the first 5 games for Ohio State are all at home. You got Notre Dame at home, Arkansas State, which is a pretty easy W there. Toledo should be an easy win. Wisconsin will be a tough game, but that's at home. And you got Rutgers. So those first 5 games all at home before you travel to Michigan State on the road. So pretty nice schedule setup for the Buckeyes. Then the second half gets a little bit different with Iowa coming to Columbus. Then you go to Penn State, travel to Northwestern. You got Indiana, Maryland, and Michigan to close out the season. And Michigan, for the first time since 2018, will come to Columbus because of the pandemic year where the game was canceled, unfortunately. So that is a look real quick at Ohio State's schedule. We'll have plenty more on that in a minute. But I want to take you through the Big Ten East. And this is just going to be my very, very, very early season prediction for Ohio State and the Big East. So I do have Ohio State winning the Eastern side. I do have Michigan finishing second. I think Michigan is going to have another good team this year. However, you lose 3 first-round draft picks for Michigan on the defensive side of the ball. Penn State should be very good again. Not great, but very good. Michigan State will be up there. Maryland, Rutgers is not the worst team in the East. I think that will fall to Indiana this year. So that's a look at the Big Ten East. Just a real quick synopsis for that. And then I'm going to flip the coin and we're going to talk about the Big Ten West. So in the Big Ten West, you obviously have a lot of, I don't know, I hate to say middling, but a lot of Big Ten West teams are just not great. Wisconsin should be the cream of the crop. Iowa should be okay. And these are just going to be my predictions going down the board. So I have Wisconsin winning the Big Ten West. So Ohio State and Wisconsin matching up again in the Big Ten championship game. Wisconsin winning, Iowa right behind them, Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, Illinois, and I have Northwestern as my 7th place team in the West. However, Pat Fitzgerald always has that Northwestern team ready to play, and they're always just scrappy. So Minnesota should be pretty solid as well, and fight for that spot. But I think it's going to come down to Wisconsin and Ohio State for the Big Ten title.
The white receiver,
and I'm sure Northwestern has plenty of those guys too. So yeah, I did it. I blame Tony Romo for doing that,
and it's all just
it's in my vernacular now too as well. So, this is from the Ohio podcast. I just thought this was funny, but they shared this quote about Jim Harbaugh. He is just such a clown. He ended the Ohio State Michigan game. And obviously they got the first win in his career there for his first time in 8 tries getting a win, and their first win as a program in a decade against the Buckeyes. And he said some people are born on third base and hit a triple and think they hit a triple. And he was referring to Ryan Day there. So some smack talk there. And then, so yesterday, one of the Ohio State reporters, Douglas Maurice, and I believe another reporter asked him about this, and he just said, I have no comment about that at this time, and gave the smirk. And, Jim Harbaugh is just like, he's like that little kid that, he's going to get in trouble at some point, and he's going to kind of be sneaky and do something wrong. And he's just going to give you that smirk. And That's what Jim Harbaugh reminds me of. So,
but I'm telling you, though, that so helps motivation for your team.
Mm-hmm.
You think about how fired up they're going to be. Just lost last time
Mm-hmm.
around. Smirky snub guy and on his press conferences.
Oh yeah,
taking swipes at your coach. I mean, this is gonna be a hype video to come.
It should be a lot of fun. This coming November, and it's always, I believe it's November 26th this year. So I am sure, as always, Ohio State has that circled on their calendar and are ready to take on Harbaugh and the Wolverines. So with that said, let's close the book on Ohio State right now. We'll revisit that next week. But we're going to switch to the Cleveland Browns, and we teased a little bit Baker Mayfield stuff last week. I saw yesterday he had his first practice with Carolina Panthers, and a lot of people were cheering him. And Baker Mayfield is an enthusiastic guy, and I think again that's kind of what we talked about a little bit on Tuesday. Is that's why people like him and are drawn to him. That's also when things aren't going right, when people don't like him and, are just like, get him out of here.
But even after the fact, he was complimentary to the fans, and that matters to me.
Yes.
It really
No,
does.
that really does. That really does. And that's a great thing. And you definitely can't argue with his passionate, just the way he, came across. He had a rough ending there, and which we're going to talk a little bit about. And I'm just going to go through this real quick, but I came up with a top 10 best and top 10 worst Baker Mayfield performances. And I'm going to start. Let's start with the positive. Let's go with the best. So obviously the number one I had was the Jets game, his first game coming in. It was the third game of the season. The Browns were 0-16 before. And remember, they had those beer lockers up in Cleveland. Yes. And like when the Browns finally got that W, they would unlock the coolers. And that was a big moment. That was a Thursday night game against the Jets. Tyrod Taylor, who was the quarterback, got hurt. Baker Mayfield comes in and leads them to a 20-17 victory. I had that as the best moment overall in my Baker Mayfield era. The second one I had was the Pittsburgh game, not the Pittsburgh playoff game, but the clinching one before that. It was the week before they actually played back-to-back games. And, just him like getting around and sliding and getting that first down, and then knowing you were going to the playoffs to end that really, really long drought. They win that game 24-22. So I thought that was number two on my list. And obviously the playoff game at Pittsburgh, which was maybe just one of the best and greatest football games I've ever experienced. They win that game 48-37. They go up 28-0 in the first quarter. And, I'm not going to go through the whole list here, but, there were some really good moments. Joe, I know you shared some of your moments and stuff with him getting his teammates hyped up and stuff. Do you have any specific games that stand out to you?
I don't. No.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. I just really thought there was a couple moments that stood out to me. He made this pass to Jarvis Landry, ironically, against the Carolina Panthers, where he just chucked it in the air and got it to him. I thought that was a great. I woke up feeling dangerous this morning after they beat Atlanta one year. That was a great one. And ironically, I have a loss in there as one of his best moments. It was a Monday night game. It was the Lamar Jackson game where he ran to the bathroom, we think, and then came back and they ended up winning, but it was just a great performance. And we thought, hey, we might be seeing this rivalry for the next 15 years between these two quarterbacks. Turns out we won't, at least with the Browns and the Ravens. So
yeah, and what's sad about that is that the memories of games that are seared in our brain are all games that he was hurt in or struggling in or whatever. And that's kind of sad for him because he had some pretty good games.
Yeah. Well, nice transition, because that brings me to my top worst moments of the Baker Mayfield era. And if you look at this list, there are going to be a ton of games from the 21 season. So out of my top 10 worst performances, 1, 2, 3, I think 8 of the 10 are from last year. And obviously the game that stands out to me is the Christmas Day game last year against the Packers. He throws 4 interceptions in a 2-point loss. And just really, I think that sealed kind of his fate with the Browns. His final game at Pittsburgh was just a really horrendous game. The Joe mentioned the the Baker Mayfield flag plant at the shoe in Columbus. There was a Monday Night Football game a couple years ago when Nick Bosa sacked him in San Francisco, and then did the flag plant thing, and that was just a really really bad game for Baker and for the Browns. Now, Joe, I got to ask you this. This is, to me, game 2 last season. They were playing the Houston Texans. They came off that opening loss to the Chiefs, but everyone came out of that game like, hey, like this Browns team's legit. They're good. You went toe-to-toe with the AFC champions, and really, a one play here or there, and the Browns win that game instead of losing it. And go into the next week and you actually beat the Houston Texans. However, Baker Mayfield throws that interception and gets his shoulder injured in that game. Let me ask you this. This is just a very, very hypothetical question. If Baker Mayfield stays healthy, let's just say he just doesn't go to make that tackle, or so we're kind of playing revisionist history here. Is Baker Mayfield still a member of the Cleveland Browns if he doesn't throw that interception or doesn't get tackled?
I'll do one better. I will say if he doesn't take that injury, or if the next game he sits out for the remainder of the season, he's still the quarterback.
Interesting. So you think that injury hurt him so bad that it affected his performance,
100%.
and then that kind of sold the organization?
Because think about it, like the Baker Mayfield as a leader fell apart because he wasn't performing well.
Right.
You put him on and put him behind, who was it? Who was our backup? I don't know.
Last year was why can't I think of his name? He's playing for the Bills now.
I keep saying Kessler. It's not Kessler.
No, he's one of those.
I know.
Why can't I think of his name? Oh man.
But anyway, you put him behind him, right? And then you let that guy play backup role and take you through the rest of the season. It's the same season at the end of the day.
Case Keenum.
Yep. That's it.
Sorry. Thank you.
and so, but I think it's a completely different outcome. You get the same score, you get the same record, but you get a healthy Baker that didn't blow up because of his poor performance.
Sure. Okay. That's fair. And I'm not going to say you're right. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I think that's probably a good argument though, because, you go out there, you play those first 2 games, and he was something like 80% completions percentage through the first 2 games. Like he looked good. And then all of a sudden it's just like, the roof fell off. It was bad.
You ever play a game hurt? It's a different deal.
It is.
You could be tough, right? But you're always thinking about getting hit right there.
Yep. And it affects the way you throw. And, again, I'm not a Baker bro or anything like that, but I will say that definitely affected his performance, which probably affected his confidence and his psyche and all that. And just was
not the same Baker.
Turned out to be a rough ending for him. All right, so let's turn the page and let's go to the Browns' current quarterback situation. Now, as of now, we still have not heard anything from Sue L. Robinson. She is the judge that's kind of the mediary for this case right now. So as it stands now, you got Deshaun Watson as your quarterback. Stefanski made it very clear Jacoby Brissett would be the backup. And then I think you bring in Josh Rosen to compete with Josh Dobbs for that third quarterback role. But, we all are expecting some sort of suspension, whether it's a short, a long, or kind of a middle type suspension for Deshaun Watson. So those guys who are your third string quarterback kind of bump up and become your second string or your backup quarterback, which is a whole different level of preparing and thinking and mindset and strategy and all that stuff. So can you put that graphic back up though? Yesterday, a lot of fans are not happy about one of these things on there. I'm putting you on the spot, but can you guess, and it's nothing to do with Deshaun Watson, can you guess a certain number?
19.
Josh Rosen.
He
chose the number 19 jersey, and fans were not pleased about that.
So
a lot of fans have not been happy about that Josh Rosen has the number 19. There's a very good chance Josh Rosen won't even make the active roster or make the 53-man roster. But he is another arm to compete in camp. And, he was a former like top 10 overall pick in, I want to say it was 2017 or 2018 drafts. And,
is he just broken down? I mean, because I remember him being quite good.
I think he was one of those guys in college that I think a lot of people thought highly of. But, when you think of like a guy like Josh Allen, you think of, oh, he's a big dude with a great arm and athletic ability. When you think of Baker, you think of, at least in college, you think of accuracy and, just like leadership and stuff like that. When you think of Sam Darnold, you might think of upside. When it came to Josh Rosen, it was like you heard some good stuff, but it wasn't like a defining characteristic. So I think he just hasn't been able to find his way. I've never really been sold on him. But if he's going to be a developmental quarterback, you could do a lot worse. So that's kind of just where I stand on him. So let me, they've been pushing all these Madden ratings and stuff out there. I'm not huge on that, but I thought this was really funny. So this was somebody out there put this out there for Sue L. Robinson, her Madden rating, since she is the judge in this case. They put her speed at a 0, her decision making at a 0 characteristic, her interest in the case at a 0, and her power though is 100. So that brings her up to a 25 overall rating on Madden 25. So that I just thought that was really funny, and I'm trying to give CHS Browns fan credit for that one. I stole that one from them on Twitter, but that was really, really good. But again, she holds all the cards. She is kind of the big decision maker. What I have heard, and again, I have no inside information. This is just what I have read, what I have heard, is she is trying to let the Deshaun Watson and the Browns and their side work out a deal and a suspension with the NFL, so she does not have to rule and set a precedent for sort of an unprecedented situation. So that's what I have heard the holdup is. So we shall see what that is. With that said, I want to take a look kind of at who's coming into camp, and there's going to be a ton of names, but I have kind of looked over at the Browns roster, and I kind of came up with my, I guess you would call it the depth chart for who I think could make the team. Now, this is going to be a very fluid list. I think most of the guys on this list will make the team. However, there could be surprises. There could be somebody cut by another team that the Browns really like and think could replace one of their guys too. So there's a ton of moves to be made, but I put 26 guys on the offensive depth chart, and obviously if you're watching, the guys in orange in an 11 personnel would be the starter. That would be 3 wide receivers, 1 running back. So Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell out of Purdue, the rookie, David Njoku. Then you got on the offensive line, Jed Wills, Joel Bitonio, Nick Harris, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin, who seems to be healthy. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Because he was a huge, huge loss for the Browns last year. Yeah. And you could see, some of their backups are great. And again, like we talked about this the other day, it was like backups are great when they only have to play a series or maybe even a game. But if you're relying on them for 5, 6, 7 games or most of the season, that's when, it really hurts. So
now some of these guys that have injury problems that are kind of persistent, are you looking to upgrade and maybe sign someone to replace some of these often hurt guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think NFL rosters are totally churned out all the time. You obviously want to keep your main guys and your skill position guys, but offensive line is a position that the Browns highly value. You can see what they pay the offensive guards, and they have some big decisions to make. Well, Jack Conklin is one of the biggest decisions coming up after this season, but it appears he is healthy. Okay. And if he's healthy, that really solidifies that offensive line, which should be good. We'll see what the Browns do at tight end, because obviously Hooper is now gone, so that kind of bumps everybody up a spot. Hopefully some of their backup offensive linemen are ready to go. You're replacing J.C. Treader at starter at center. With Nick Harris, and you brought in Seattle's center from last year. I think his name is Ethan Posick as your backup. So we'll see. But the running back room is very solid. Wide receiver, you have an elite wide receiver, but it's those other guys. Is Donovan Peoples-Jones going to take that next step? Is David Bell going to be the hyped up rookie that we think he might be? Is Anthony Schwartz, who they took in the 3rd round last year, who has all this speed, but is he going to stay on the field? Is he going to be ready? Is he going to step up and be that 3rd or 4th receiver that the Browns need? And we all know Stefanski loves to run the ball. So you got the 3-headed monster there with obviously Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but you also have Dearness Johnson, who could be a trade candidate. You don't know. They drafted the running back out of Cincinnati, Ford. So they have a lot of toys to play with.
Now, do you think with Watson that he runs his offense rather than Stefanski's playbook?
Well, I think any good coach, and this is true in all sports, will cater their offense to their skill. So I think it's an old way of thinking of, like we're a ground and pound team. That's all we're going to do. I think with a guy like Deshaun Watson, who is arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league, we just haven't seen him for a year. But with a guy with his skill set, you have to play to his strengths. He can throw the deep ball. He's accurate. He can roll out. He can make plays with his legs. But that doesn't mean the Browns are going to run him to death or anything like that. I think it's just gives you more opportunity to do more things. He can read the field, and he's never had a good offensive line to play behind. In Houston, he was constantly sacked and on the run because he had to be. Right. So we'll see. And again, do we have him for the whole season? Do we have him for 10 games? So that's gonna factor in too, and how Stefanski plays this, how the Browns dictate how their training camp goes too. So
do you think we're still looking for quarterback potential?
I think always. I think always. And I know Andrew Berry and their front office probably has eyes on other quarterback competition. And if a guy, much like if we would have cut Baker, much like that situation, I think the Browns would pounce on someone if they could get someone in.
Who would you hope? Like, let's just say Watson's done for 6 games.
Okay.
You don't want to see Brissett really be your starter.
Yeah.
But somebody gets cut as a backup,
sure,
but better than your backup.
Well, I think to get someone better than Brissett, you'd probably have to make a trade. But with that said, there's a lot of guys out there that could become available. Let's see about Sam Darnold. What happens with him? And ironically, if he gets cut from Carolina, he could become the Browns' backup quarterback. He's not someone I want, but is he better? He'd be the best 3rd string quarterback in the league. You know what I mean? But if you remember last year when the Browns played Las Vegas, Baker was out, and so was Case Keenum. There's Case Keenum's name again. Remembered it this time. They brought in, and I forget his Mullins, I believe it was Nick Mullins who played that Raiders game. I mean, the Raiders were a playoff team that took the Bengals all the way to the last possession of the game. The Browns had them on the ropes with their 3rd string quarterback and a lot of players missing. So it's really about what you can do as a team, and especially if it's one game here or there, or one possession, or one series, or even one play. Can you rely on that backup or 3rd string quarterback if you need it? I don't think we've probably ever talked this much about a backup or 3rd string quarterback, but the case has to be made this year because it's so unknown. We're in kind of murky waters here, so we'll see. But let's transition, because as Myles Garrett said, you can't win the game if you have 0 points. So he is really hyping up the defense this year, and the Browns defense should be one of the best in the National Football League. If we go through, and again, I don't know what their starting lineup is going to be, but I know you have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney as your edge rushers. You bring in Chase Winovich from New England. As that backup edge rusher, you might, I'm sure they have a lot of cap money to play with where they can bring in a veteran that's a free agent or maybe that gets cut loose in training camp. But you have those, you have Elliott, Bryant, Winfrey, and Togiai, at your defensive tackles. So we'll dive deeper into those guys in a little bit. But at your linebacking position, you got JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who should be one of the best linebackers in the NFL. You got Anthony Walker, Jacob Phillips at your middle linebacker, Sione Takitaki, one of the best names in the NFL. At one of your, the Browns are going to probably play a lot of 2 linebacker sets because of the way just the NFL is. It's a lot of passing. So you're at most of the time it's going to have 2 linebackers on the field at most. Against heavy run teams, you're going to have those 3 linebackers. So Taki will play a lot in those sets. But the strength of the Browns, and arguably one of the best units in the league, is that backfield, defensive backfield, where you have Denzel Ward on one side, you got Greg Newsome on the other side, you got Grant Delpit, and you got John Johnson. Most likely your starting 4 in the secondary. You also bring in Richard Emerson, who is your top draft pick this year. You got Ronnie Harrison backing up Delpit, Richard LeCount, with former Georgia Bulldog, who is a solid player. You got Greedy Williams and AJ Green back there. So I have the Browns starting the season with 23 defensive players. So with the 26 offensive players, 23 defensive players, that takes you up to 49. And that leaves you with the specialists, which they take Cade York in the 4th round, should be their solid, kicker. A lot of good things about him. You bring in, I believe his last name is Bjorquez. I believe he came from the Packers, but he should be your punter. And then you have Jakeem Grant, who you bring in from the Chicago Bears, who was a Pro Bowler the last couple of years with the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears, returning a lot of kicks for either touchdowns or just like a high average. So, and you got your long snapper in there. You got to get him in there. So your kicker, your punter, and your long snapper would be your 3 remaining specialists to get you to that 52.
You had no fullback on your list. Are we fullbackless?
No. That's a good point. And I took fullback off. However, I believe his name's Johnny Stanton. He could maybe be that 3rd tight end / fullback. I think the Browns are probably going to go to more of an aerial attack with Watson. I'll put that caveat on there, with Watson. So that remains to be seen. Okay. But I think Johnny Stanton is one of those guys that at the very minimum will be on the practice squad and, could fluctuate up or back depending on the opponent or what it might be. So I know they do like him, but, we'll see about that. So one other thing I want to talk about with the Browns before we switch gears one more time. Actually, 2 more things with the Browns, but here is a breakdown of their schedule this year. This is not the schedule in order, but as always, they will play 6 games against the AFC North, home and home with the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Ravens. They will also play the AFC East this year, which is 4 games. So you'll play the Bills, the Patriots, the Dolphins, and the Jets. You will play the NFC South this year, which is the Falcons, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and obviously game 1 against Carolina. And then you play the 3rd place schedule. So they take 3 third place teams and match them up against another 3rd place team. And the Browns draw the LA Chargers, the Washington Commanders, and the Houston Texans. So a lot of good stuff this year. Plenty of more Browns talk as we go forward. But this is going to be a very simple answer for many Browns fans. But I'm very curious what people have to think about this. Art Modell. A lot of people will remember Art Modell from way back when, former owner of the Browns, and ended up moving them to Baltimore to become the Ravens franchise, is one of the nominees for the NFL Hall of Fame, which, as we all know, is right up the road in Canton. So he is a nominee for a 2023 induction. Joe.
Yes.
Should Mr. Modell be in the NFL Hall of Fame? Yes or no?
See, I can't answer that. I mean, I didn't cheer at his funeral, but he was not my favorite guy.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think Art Modell probably did, a lot of good things, but I can't get past the horrible bad thing he did to the city of Cleveland. So
can't get over it.
I know he wasn't treated well a lot of times, but it is what it is. And I'm gonna say, let's nix Art Modell and his Hall of Fame credentials. All right, Joe.
Yes.
Last thing, unsports related. It could be sports related if you want it. Tomorrow night at 11 p.m. we have a drawing for the Mega Millions, sitting at, as it stands now, 1.02 billion, and that 0.02 is what, $20 million. So just
decimal point.
Just a drop in the bucket. The cash option is $602 million, $602.5 million. If you want to take the cash option. So I saw you put a Facebook post out earlier, but 602 billion or million, excuse me, cash option. First of all, would you take the cash option or the loan? Yeah.
Well, in my very practical thing, I took the payouts over time.
Okay.
Right. And that was more of a technical, scientific thing. But on an emotional level, give me the lump sum so I can Scrooge McDuck it and just dive into it.
Yeah. What would you like? Obviously, let me just say this I think the chances of someone watching this show or that we know winning is probably about, a grain of sand on a large beach. It's a very small percentage, but there is a percentage. You're telling me there's a chance. The first thing I'm going to advise anyone out there to do, get a financial advisor and put it in a trust, and don't let anyone know you want it. That's the first thing.
100%.
That's the first thing, because you're going to have family members showing up you haven't seen in 20, 30 years. You're going to have old friends knocking at your door, calling your cell phone. And so let's take this in a positive direction. That's just my fiscally sound advice. That's free advice for you guys out there. And Joe hosts a financial show, so he could tell you all about this stuff. But Joe, for a fun purpose only, what would you do with that, 1.02 billion or 602 million?
I'm buying a jet and a yacht.
Okay.
I'm going to be on the ocean and I'm going to be in the air, but I have to learn to fly and pilot.
That's true.
Those two
That's
things.
true. Okay.
And a lot of scratch off tickets.
Could
to
you
see if I could do it again?
Could you get a yacht big enough to land a small jet?
You could. Totally. An aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Commissioned aircraft carrier. You're talking 600 million.
Yeah.
Here, right?
Yeah.
Dream big.
Yeah. Right. So that's going to eat up a heavy chunk of that money. Right. So
I'll turn it into some kind of business though. Right. Okay. I'll like ship stuff or whatever on my way.
Okay. Let me ask you this too. So that cash option, is that with taxes already taken out?
I believe it is.
Or do you have to pay taxes
I believe you
on that?
Some pay taxes and you're at the 40% level.
Okay.
So that sounds about right.
All right. Good deal. I think first thing you got to do is, make sure you're clean with everything. Pay off all your stuff.
Liability's gone.
Donate to like Project MKC and Youngstown Studio and a lot of other good businesses and good charities and stuff like that, and then have some fun with it.
Yeah. Well, when I did the payout option, they'll give you like $35 million for the next like 20 years.
Okay.
Right? So like you spend down through 30 million and next year, boom, another 30 million.
Yeah. Well, and simple math too. If you have, let's just go with a nice, easy number, $1 million in the bank, and you're making 5% off of that, most people can live off of 50 grand a year.
Heck yeah.
And then, that just keeps growing. So
because after you buy your first yacht, I mean, you don't need one the next year.
How many yachts does one man need? Maybe one in Europe and maybe one in North America.
That's right.
But, besides those two, that's just being greedy, So good luck. I kind of wish, and this is just me this would never happen. I almost wish like 100 people won, 10, whatever that it would equate to, $1 million. Like, I wish 100 people would win $100 million and then like spread that money out through the country and stuff. But that's not the way things work.
We can also do. You and I can tag team and buy like the worst NFL team, get it in value, and then make it into because we know what makes a good NFL team.
That's true. I think. Well, what did the Denver Broncos just sold for? They were sold for like $4.5 billion. So we could be part owners. Yeah, we could be part owners. We could be.
I could finance the rest.
Yeah, yeah. Just keep throwing me some of that TV money every year, and we'll call it a deal.
That's exactly right.
Okay,
front me. I'm good for it.
All right, very good, Joe. Final thing we're gonna do here today, and this has a little bit to do with you. We're gonna tie it in. So I'm gonna let you. I'm going to walk you through this, and I'm going to put it out there on social media for our viewers and let them vote on it. But I'm going to have you go through and move these people on in the brackets as we talk about them. And you can say why you're choosing them, or you can just move them on if you don't want to demean anybody or anything. So we're going to start with these are randomly seated, but Joe Biden versus Joe Rogan. So this is the Joe bracket series. So we're going to start with Joe Biden versus Joe Rogan. Joe Biden, obviously our president. Joe Rogan, #1 podcast in the United States.
I'm going with Rogan.
You're going with Rogan. So Rogan moves on. Okay. I would also go Joe Rogan there, just based on, I like Joe Biden as a person. I don't think he's a very good president right now, but that's neither here nor there. So we're both moving Rogan on. The next matchup, you got Joe Willie Namath versus Joey Chestnut, the hot dog champion. Which one are you moving on?
Namath 100 times.
You're going with Namath. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm probably agreeing with you. The Susie Colbert thing when he was drunk on the Monday Night Football game and said, "Susie, I just want to kiss you." I thought that was so great.
He's my guy.
All right, Joe, we have come to your portion of the bracket.
I made it into your bracket,
and I took your profile picture with the sunglasses on, so you look extra badass. So we have Joe Danier, and I had to put you against the cartoon character Joe Camel.
Well, he's got glasses too. I think mine look better, so I'm going with me.
All right, Joe's moving himself on. That's very
humble,
very humble of Joe. So all right. The next matchup, a couple sports guys. We got Joe Dimaggio, one of the greatest hitters in all of baseball history, and the recent famous Joe, right down the 71 in Ohio, Joe Burrow. So
I'm going with DiMaggio.
You're going with Joey DiMaggio. All right. Now on the opposite side of the bracket, we got Joe Pesci versus Joe Montana. This is a tough one.
Oh yeah. I got to go with Pesci.
Sorry,
Montana.
Joe Pesci. No, that's great. That's great. And maybe I should have matched up Joe Pesci versus another Joe in this.
Montana.
But I said Joe Montana. All right. Well, let's go with Joe Louis, the famous boxer, versus former Cleveland Brown and future NFL Hall of Famer Joe Thomas.
JT, baby.
JT. All right. So Joe Thomas moves on. All right, next one. We got an entertainment one. We got Joe Dirt, or he might say Dirte. Joe Dirt versus Joe Cocker. Needs a little help from his friends here.
I'm telling you, I'm going with Dirt.
You're going with Joe Dirt.
Going with Dirt.
All right. And then the final one, another entertainment bracket here. We got Joey Tribbiani from Friends versus Joey Gladstone of Full House.
I'm going with Joey from Friends.
Joey from Friends. Yep. Joey Tribbiani.
Joey.
All right.
Hey, Joey.
So now we are down to our Elite Eight, Joe.
Yes.
I'm going to have you now you got Joe Rogan versus Joe Willie Namath. Who you going with?
I'm going with Rogan again.
You're going with Rogan again. All right. In your matchup, you got yourself versus Joe DiMaggio.
I have to go with DiMaggio. Did I just eliminate myself?
You did. You did. That's all right. That's okay. Both JDs on that one, too. All right. Next matchup, we got Joe Pesci versus Joe Thomas.
I like Pesci so much. I'm going with Pesci.
Joe Pesci. Moving on. And then we got Joe Dirt versus Joey Tribbiani to get to the Final Four.
Joe Dirt all the way.
Joe Dirt. All right. So in our Final Four, we have
it's getting intense.
Rogan, Dimaggio, Pesci, and Dirt.
This is so awesome.
So do you want Joe Rogan or Joe Dimaggio? Who's making it in your poll?
Go with Rogan again.
Going with Rogan. Rogan to the championship. And then we got Joe Pesci and Joe Dirt.
Oh, man. I'm going with Pesci.
Going with Pesci.
Going with Rogan versus Pesci.
So we got we have a Joe Rogan versus Pesci final. And who are you going with as your ultimate Joe?
Joe Pesci.
Joe
from Casino
Pesci.
Joe Pesci. That's the guy. My guy.
I love it. I love it. That was fun. I had to put, I wanted to put that together. I'm going to put this out on social media too. And I just want to see what other people vote on. But
anybody ends up with Pesci, I'm buying them pizza.
I love it. And make sure your house is well guarded if you go, you leave for a vacation in Paris or something like that. All right. So Joe Pesci is our winner of our Ultimate Joe bracket. So thank you guys for watching. Let me tell you one more time. This this show in Youngstown Studio is brought to you by Irish Bob's. We appreciate their support of our studio and our shows. So for Joe, who he did make it to the Elite Eight. He made it to the Elite Eight. That's pretty solid. I'm Justin. We will have plenty more for you. I am actually not going to be live in studio next week, but maybe Joe and I will sync up. I will be actually at Brown's training camp, so maybe I'll do a live remote,
sure.
and you can host it from there. Sure. So we will see you guys next week. Everybody have a great day. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate